The stars burned crimson across the viewport of the Imperium Citadel as Admiral Karth Ven watched another Terran colony collapse in silence. The light of its destruction reached them seconds later, a bloom of white heat that faded into nothing. Around him, the command deck echoed with the hum of celebration, the sound of victory too loud for comfort. Another human world extinguished, drawled High Warlord Tras Vern, his scales glinting like molten glass beneath the chamber lights. The mammals fought bravely for a species built on sentiment. They even sang as they died. He turned toward Karth, eyes narrowing in mock sympathy. "Does it trouble you, Admiral, to kill those who weep?" Karth's jaw tightened. "It troubles me when wars end too easily, my lord." The laughter that followed was sharp, metallic, cruel. Around them, hollow screens replayed the destruction of outposts and defense stations, each one falling faster than the last. The Vascari Dominion had crushed empires before, but none had yielded this quietly. It should have felt glorious. Instead, it felt wrong. Karth watched the reports scrolling before him. Terran colonies surrendering within hours. Entire fleets vanishing instead of fighting. Their transmissions carried odd fragments, old songs, strange poetry, coded data that meant nothing to Vascari linguists. Yet something about the pattern unnerved him. The humans were behaving like soldiers withdrawing, not victims retreating. Tras rose, his ceremonial armor ringing with each motion. "We move on Earth next," he announced, as if declaring a holiday. The homeworld of the species. Their cradle, their myth. Once it burns, their spirit dies with it. A murmur spread through the officers. Some looked eager. Others exchanged glances with quiet unease. Karth stepped forward. "Earth is no military target. It's symbolic. Strike it, and you unite what remains of them. You'll give them something to die for." "Die?" Tras smirked. "They already have." Karth's voice lowered. "You don't understand them. They build monuments not to triumph, but to memory. Every war they fought has been for survival. Even extinction won't teach them surrender." Tras approached him slowly, tail sweeping the deck. "You sound almost admiring, Admiral. Shall I report that to the Council?" Karth met his gaze without flinching. "Report what you wish. My loyalty is to victory, not arrogance." For a heartbeat, silence hung heavy between them. Then Tras laughed again, loud and dismissive. "Prepare your fleet, Karth. The Council decrees Earth must fall. The humans will remember this day as the end of their species." Karth saluted stiffly, concealing the unease curling in his gut. He had studied the humans more than most Vascari officers. Their history was chaos, wars upon wars, empires rising and burning, 1,000 years of self-inflicted wounds. But underneath that chaos was something dangerous, persistence. They never stopped. Not when conquered, not even when dying. By the time the fleet reached Sol, the system was quiet. Too quiet. The human defenses were ancient, rusting orbital platforms, abandoned satellites, a handful of unmanned drones drifting aimlessly. The sensor readouts showed minimal energy signatures. Earth itself looked serene beneath its cloud cover, blue and green and unguarded. Tras stood before the viewport, triumphant. A dead world guarding its ghosts. Fire at will. Karth hesitated. "My lord, our scans show interference patterns across the magnetosphere. I recommend we..." Fire. The Dominion fleet unleashed its fury. Plasma cascades lanced through the void, striking the lunar defense array. It exploded beautifully, fragments scattering into the dark. The fleet cheered. Then came the next volley toward Earth. The first plasma bolts struck atmosphere and vanished. No explosion. No debris. Just silence. Tras frowned. "Did we miss?" "No, sir," replied the gunnery officer. "Contact lost. Our sensors can't confirm impact. The energy just disappeared." Karth felt it then, a pressure in the air, like the ship itself was holding its breath. "All ships, hold fire," he ordered. Too late. Every console flickered. The lights dimmed. Systems screamed warnings. "Gravitic distortion," someone shouted. Across the entire fleet. Space itself began to ripple, folding, twisting, as if an invisible hand were squeezing it. Karth stared through the viewport and saw something impossible, the stars bending inward, their light warping around a point of perfect darkness. A voice came through the comms. "Come, human, to the Vascari fleet orbiting Sol. You have violated Earth's defense perimeter. Remain stationary for disarmament." The bridge erupted in confusion. Trask roared, "Identify the source." "Unidentified vessel approaching," the sensors officer cried. "Size small. Energy output beyond measurable range." Through the distortion, a shape emerged. Sleek, black, silent. It looked more like absence than metal, as if reality refused to touch it. "This is Captain Alara Holt, Terran Naval Command," the voice continued, perfectly steady. "You've attacked Earth. That was unwise." Trask spat. "A single ship? One human dares." Before he could finish, his words were drowned out by a blinding flash. The Dominion's flagship, a Leviathan of 1,000 guns, simply vanished. No explosion. No debris. Just nothing. Screams filled the comm channels. "Flagship gone. We've lost half the command net." Karth's blood ran cold. "How?" he whispered. "Quantum singularity event localized within their reactor core," said a trembling officer. But there was no detonation sequence. Someone triggered it remotely. Trask stared at Karth, fury twisting his face. "What trick is this?" Karth could only shake his head. "Not a trick. A warning." The comm crackled again. Holt's voice returned, softer this time. "We didn't want this war. But you brought it here. You burned our worlds, thinking we were weak." Silence stretched. The Vascari fleet drifted like stunned beasts. "From this moment," Holt said, her tone as sharp as cold steel, "Earth is awake." Then the transmission ended. The stars stopped bending. The black ship turned, gliding toward the void, leaving only silence and the ruin of arrogance behind it. Karth stood motionless. Around him, officers whispered prayers. Trask sank into his command chair, face pale beneath his scaled skin. "What are they?" someone whispered. Karth didn't answer immediately. His eyes stayed fixed on the space where the human ship had vanished. "Something we should have left alone," he murmured. For the first time in his career, Admiral Karth then felt the quiet, unmistakable taste of fear. And far beyond the fleet's wreckage, on a small blue world, humanity opened its eyes. The light of soul filtered through the command deck of the EFS Nemesis, painting Captain Alara Holt's face in pale gold. Around her, the hum of systems whispered like restrained thunder. Every screen displayed the same data, Vascari fleets retreating in chaos, their once proud formations scattering like leaves in a storm. "Damage reports?" she asked quietly. "None, Captain," her lieutenant replied, voice taut with disbelief. "We didn't take a single hit." Holt gave a small nod, but her expression didn't change. Victory never impressed her. She'd seen too many come at the wrong cost. "Then they'll be back," she said. "Predators don't retreat, they circle." Behind her, a voice crackled from the strategic AI core, calm and genderless. "Predictive models confirm, Captain. The Dominion is mobilizing 5 additional fleets. Estimated arrival, 37 hours, planetary time." "Plenty of time to remind them why they should have stayed away," she murmured. The crew exchanged uneasy glances. For all her composure, Alara Holt was not a woman untouched by what she commanded. She had lost her husband during the fall of Titan Outpost, her son evacuated from Luna months before the final blackout. Yet here she stood, commander of a weapon humanity had sworn never to use. "Project Janus," she whispered under her breath, as if saying the name risked waking something that should never have been created. The AI detected the phrase. "Would you like to review Project Janus operational parameters, Captain?" "No," she said. "I remember them all." Her hand brushed the console, where the activation sequence still glowed faintly. Janus, the project that had turned the last century of human research into a single vessel, a folded space warship capable of rewriting the laws of motion and energy. It wasn't meant to destroy. It was meant to prevent destruction by making any attack meaningless. But humanity had been patient, hiding it in myth and silence while pretending weakness to lure the galaxy's predators into overconfidence. Now the mask had fallen. "Captain," said Commander Ishan Rao, her second in command, "we still have survivors from the outlying colonies. They're asking what happened. What should I tell them?" Holt's eyes flicked toward him, steady and unflinching. "Tell them Earth is no longer prey." He nodded, but there was unease in his gaze. "And the Dominion ships? The ones still alive?" "Let them retreat," she replied. "They'll spread the message faster than we can." Rao hesitated, then leaned closer. "Permission to speak freely?" "Always." "This isn't like you. You're calm. Too calm." Ilara's lips tightened into the ghost of a smile. "Calm is what comes after fear has finished its work." He didn't press further. Everyone aboard the Nemesis carried ghosts. The crew had volunteered knowing what the ship could do and what it might cost them. Some believed it divine justice. Others called it the end of history. Holt called it necessity. She turned toward the central viewport where Earth floated beneath them, serene and unbroken. It was strange, she thought, how fragile the planet looked, small enough to fit under her thumb if she raised her hand. Yet it had endured everything: wars, ice, fire, famine, arrogance. Perhaps survival was the only constant in the human equation. "Prepare a transmission," she ordered, "to the Dominion High Council." The comms officer hesitated. "What message, Captain?" Her tone softened, almost tender. "The truth." The officer nodded and began transmitting on open frequencies. Across the galaxy, Vascari channels blinked with a simple signal, the voice of the woman who had erased their flagship. "This is Captain Alara, Holt of the Terran Defense Command," she said, her voice steady and unhurried. "We have tolerated your aggression for centuries, believing reason would prevail. You enslaved our colonies. You erased our ambassadors. You mistook patience for fear." On distant ships, alien officers froze as the human voice echoed through their bridges. "That era is over. Humanity will not beg, nor will it run. You have seen the result of attacking Earth. Should you continue, know this: your empires will not end in fire or triumph, but in silence. We will not conquer. We will simply remove your ability to harm." Then the transmission ended. No threat, no boasting. Just quiet certainty. Back on the Nemesis, silence hung heavy after the broadcast. Rao exhaled slowly. "That'll make us a target for every empire still breathing." "It was never about avoiding their aim," Holt said. "It's about showing them what happens when they pull the trigger." The AI chimed softly. "Incoming transmission. Encrypted Dominion channel. Source: Admiral Karth Ven." "Open it," Holt said. The holographic image that flickered before her was haggard, scales dulled, eyes haunted. Karth Ven looked nothing like the proud commander from intelligence files. "Human," he said, his voice low and strained. "What are you?" "A mirror," she replied. "You're looking at the reflection of your own choices." His jaw clenched. "You could have destroyed us all. Why didn't you?" "Because extinction teaches nothing," Holt said. "You'll understand more alive than dead." For a long moment, neither spoke. The silence between them was heavier than any weapon. Then Karth whispered, "We thought you were children playing with fire." "You weren't wrong," Holt said quietly. "But we learned how to make the fire obey." The transmission cut, leaving only the hum of the ship. Rao broke the silence. "Do you trust him?" "No," Holt said, eyes still fixed on the void. "But he's the only one who's asking the right question." She turned away, signaling for the ship's systems to power down from engagement mode. Around her, the crew began the delicate process of resetting quantum drives, their movements efficient and wordless. Outside, the debris of the Dominion fleet drifted in perfect silence, illuminated by the light of the sun. Holt watched as fragments of alien metal tumbled end over end, glittering like cold confetti against the black. "Do you think they'll come again?" Rao asked. "They always come again," she said softly. "Predators test the edges of cages. The smart ones stop before the door closes." He studied her for a moment. "And if they don't?" Her gaze hardened. "Then we remind them what waits inside." The AI's voice broken again. "Captain, subspace anomalies detected across 6 sectors. Dominion fleets regrouping." "Let them," Holt said. "They'll reach us when they're ready to understand what war really means." She walked toward the viewport, her reflection merging with the stars beyond. For a fleeting instant, she imagined her son on Luna Base, looking up at the same sky, unaware of how close the galaxy had come to burning. Maybe someday he would live in a world where humanity didn't have to pretend weakness to survive. But not yet. For now, Captain Alara, Holt stood watch over Earth, the quiet guardian of a species that had finally stopped running, and waited for the next mistake the galaxy would make. The chamber of the Vascari High Council trembled with restrained panic. Holograms of ruined fleets hovered above the obsidian floor, shattered armadas, thousands of ships lost to a single Terran vessel. The air reeked of fear disguised as arrogance. High Warlord Trass slammed his claws onto the table, his voice slicing through the tension. "You're all behaving like frightened hatchlings. One ship cannot cripple an empire." Across from him, Elder Rith gestured toward the data feeds. "And yet it has. You saw the reports, whole battalions erased, weapon systems turned against themselves, gravity folding like silk. That's not warfare. That's something else. Karth Ven stood near the edge of the chamber, silent. He had been summoned not as an advisor, but as a warning, a symbol of failure. Yet none of the loud, posturing warlords had been within Sol system. None had heard that calm human voice, or watched space itself obey her words. "They're toying with us," Trask continued, his scaled brow twitching. "The humans have stumbled onto ancient technology, nothing more. If we strike now, with full force, we can bury them before they—" Karth's voice cut through the room. "Before they what? Before they do what they already can." Dozens of eyes turned toward him. He stepped forward slowly. "You think they're using ancient relics? No. They're using strategy. They didn't fight us, they dismantled us. No casualties, no destruction beyond necessity. They could have burned us all, but they didn't. That's what frightens me." The silence that followed was heavy. Even Trask hesitated. "You speak like they're gods." Karth shook his head. "No. Worse. They're human." A low murmur spread across the council. One of the younger officers scoffed. "You give them too much credit. They're primitives with clever tools." "Then explain," Karth said, his tone hardening, "why their colonies surrendered without resistance. Why they allowed us to think they were weak. Why they let you reach their homeworld, then wiped out your fleet in silence." Trask snarled, "Because they were desperate." Karth's eyes glinted. "Desperate creatures don't wait until the enemy is in orbit before striking. They planned this. Every step, every failure we celebrated was bait." The room erupted into argument, voices clashing, data streams flickering, pride warring with fear. Above them, the holographic stars glowed faintly red. "Enough," said Elder Rith at last. "Admiral Ven, what do you propose?" "Withdraw all fleets from Terran sectors. Open negotiations. Send envoys. If we keep fighting, we risk extinction." Trask's laugh was venomous. "You've lost your spine, Admiral. You'd have us kneel to a species that hasn't even colonized half the galaxy." Karth met his sneer with quiet steadiness. "Better to kneel than to vanish." Trask rose, towering, tail coiling behind him. "Then you no longer speak for the Dominion. Guards." The council lights flickered. Every display froze. For a heartbeat, the room was plunged into darkness. Then a voice, human female, filled the air. "This is Captain Alara Holt of the Terran Defense Command." Gasps erupted. Some fell to their knees. Others reached for weapons that no longer functioned. "You've gathered to discuss our next war," the voice continued, calm as still water. "There will not be another." Trask roared, "How dare you intrude on?" The chamber's walls shifted. The stars outside the windows warped, bending inward. Reality rippled. "Consider this a demonstration," Holt said. "We can reach anywhere, anytime. We don't seek your surrender. We seek your restraint." The voice faded, and the lights returned. The council sat frozen. Trask's fury broke first. "Find them," he shouted. "Find where she spoke from." "It came from everywhere," the technicians whispered. "Every relay, every system. Even internal ones not connected to the network." Elder Rith sank back into her seat, her eyes dull with realization. "They've already won." Karth stood still, heart pounding. Somewhere deep within him, a strange calm spread. It wasn't defeat he felt, it was understanding. Later that night, he stood on his personal balcony overlooking the sprawl of the Dominion capital. The city glowed with artificial suns, but for the first time, he saw how small it all was. Empires thought themselves eternal until the universe reminded them of proportion. He heard footsteps behind him. It was his aide, young and frightened. "Admiral, the fleets await your command. Do we fight or withdraw?" Karth looked toward the stars, where Sol lay hidden behind the haze of light years. "Neither," he said softly. "We learn." "But the Council?" "The Council will destroy us if we let them." His voice was steady now, anchored by clarity. "Humanity fights with silence, precision, and mercy. We respond with noise and pride. Which do you think survives?" The aide didn't answer. Far away, the EFS Nemesis drifted through folded space, unseen and untraceable. On its bridge, Captain Holt watched the same stars through a quiet haze of exhaustion. "Dominion activity decreasing," reported Commander Rao. "Council broadcasts in disarray. You've shaken them, Captain." Holt didn't smile. Fear fades. Understanding lasts longer. He hesitated. And if they don't learn, then we keep teaching, she said. One empire at a time. Rao turned away uneasy. You make it sound like we're the monsters now. Holt's reflection in the glass looked older than her years. Monsters don't think about mercy. She paused. We do. He wanted to believe that. But even as he left, she kept staring into the dark, her thoughts heavy with what she could never say aloud, that humanity's awakening might not stop with defense. Once power is understood, it hungers to be used. Back in the Dominion capital, Karth stood before the council once more. The chamber felt smaller now, its grandeur meaningless beneath the shadow of realization. I warned you, he said quietly. You called me a coward. But you've seen what they are capable of. They could have erased this world tonight. They didn't. That means there's still a chance. Trask glared at him, trembling with rage. A chance for what? Submission. Karth's answer came like steel. Survival. He walked out before they could respond. The doors sealed behind him with a hiss that sounded like the closing of history. Outside, the night sky burned with artificial lights, but no stars shone through. For the first time, Karth longed to see them again, the real stars, not the illusions of empire. Somewhere out there, humanity watched, patient as the void itself. And he understood now that survival for them was not enough. They would reshape the galaxy to ensure they never had to fight again. He whispered to the silent horizon, we thought we ruled the stars. But they've already claimed the dark between them. The wind carried his words into the endless night, and somewhere beyond it, the nemesis turned toward the galactic core, where the war's true ending waited. The void above the galactic core shimmered like a wound in space. Hundreds of Dominion warships hung in formation, their hulls gleaming with desperation. Energy signatures pulsed erratically, too many weapons powered at once, too much fear dressed as courage. Admiral Karth then stood at the bridge window of the VDS Sovereign, staring into that fractured light. This wasn't a battle formation. It was a funeral waiting to happen. Fleet ready, Admiral, said his aide. High Warlord Trask commands the central line. He's promised to end the human threat today. Karth didn't turn. Promises are easy when you've never seen what you're fighting. The aide hesitated. And you believe they'll come? They always come, Karth murmured. But never the way we expect. Across the bridge, sensor alarms whispered faintly. A tremor rippled through the data streams, a distortion like gravity holding its breath. Then space itself peeled open. A single vessel emerged. It was smaller than any of the Dominion dreadnoughts, dark and sleek, its surface absorbing light like a shadow given form. The EFS Nemesis. No fleet, no escorts, just one ship. Trask's voice boomed across the shared channel, dripping arrogance and madness. One ship dares to face the Dominion? Fire everything. 1,000 cannons ignited at once. Energy lanced across the stars, converging on the human vessel, then vanished. Every shot dissolved, refracted, bent away, as if the universe itself refused to harm it. Karth whispered, it's begun. The Dominion fleet staggered. Engines failed without reason, power cores flickered out, navigation systems froze mid-command. One by one, their ships began drifting like corpses in a tide. A voice filled every comm channel, clear and calm. This is Captain Alara Holt. You stand at the center of your final decision. You may surrender your weapons or your world. Choose. Trask snarled, you dare. His words ended as his ship imploded inward, folding silently into itself. No explosion, no trace, just the quiet erasure of defiance. On the Nemesis, Holt stood motionless, eyes fixed on the collapsing fleet. Her reflection stared back at her from a glass, pale, sleepless, resolute. Commander Rao stood at her side, unable to look away. You didn't even give them time to answer. They've had centuries to answer, she said softly. They just never listened. He swallowed hard. If we keep doing this, what will be left of us? She turned toward him, her expression unreadable. That's what I'm trying to find out. On the Dominion bridge, Karth's crew panicked. Ships were vanishing without a trace, each one erased with surgical precision. The silence between the disappearances was unbearable. He watched the tactical map shrink with every passing second until only a handful of vessels remained. Karth opened a private channel. Captain Holt. Her voice answered almost instantly. Admiral Van. You don't have to do this, he said. They're broken. You've won. This isn't about victory. Then what is it about? Her silence was longer this time. When she spoke again, her tone carried a strange, weary tenderness. Balance. We let the galaxy grow used to our restraint. Every world that fell under your empire did, so because we stayed quiet. This is not revenge, Admiral, it's correction. You're turning into what you swore to destroy, Karth said. Holt's eyes flicked toward the void, where another Dominion cruiser folded out of existence. Maybe, but sometimes monsters are all that keep the dark from spreading. The connection ended. Karth exhaled, the sound trembling. Around him, officers screamed as gravity fields destabilized. He ordered evacuation, but his voice was lost beneath the hum of a dying fleet. He closed his eyes. So this is how empires end, he whispered. Then, unexpectedly, the ship went still. The shaking stopped. The air steadied. Outside, the Nemesis hovered in silence, its systems dimmed. The Dominion ships, those that remained, floated intact. The human voice returned, but softer now. Stand down. You are disarmed. Karth stared at the displays in disbelief. Every weapon, every reactor, every piece of war machinery had shut down simultaneously, but his crew was alive. All of them. He looked toward the stars where the Nemesis glided, and for the first time, he bowed his head. You could have killed us. We considered it, Holt replied. But extinction is easy. Learning is hard. He nodded slowly. Then let me learn. Let us live. A pause then. You'll serve as governor. You'll rebuild what your empire destroyed. Under Terran oversight. And if I refuse, then we start again. The calm cut. Karth lowered his gaze, knowing the choice wasn't his to make any more. Hours later, the Dominion capital surrendered without resistance. Terran ships appeared across every major system, not in fleets, but singly, like silent watchers. No demands, no occupation, just presence. And that was enough. Captain Holt stood once more on her bridge, Earth's signal faintly echoing in the distance. Rao approached her quietly. They've submitted. All of them. She didn't respond at first. Her fingers brushed the console where the activation codes still glowed faintly, the power that could end civilizations with a word. Submission isn't peace, she said finally. It's a pause. Then what happens now? We give them time, she said, and we decide who we become. Rao studied her face, seeing the cracks that command had carved there. You've changed. So has humanity, she murmured. We thought surviving was enough. Now we know it isn't. She turned back to the viewport as the stars unfolded ahead. Somewhere beyond, the remnants of the Dominion flickered like dying embers. She wondered how long before they, or someone else, tested Earth again. A new transmission pulsed through the comms, encrypted, Terran origin. The voice was mechanical, but unmistakably human. Nemesis protocol complete. Awaiting next directive. Rao's eyes widened. There are others. Holt's expression remained calm, but a shadow passed across it. The fleet was never meant to be singular. Then what now? He asked quietly. Her answer came like a prayer and a warning all at once. Now we keep the peace. The Nemesis turned toward the stars, its engines whispering like thunder behind glass. As it accelerated into the fold, Holt watched the galaxy shrink into streaks of light. There was no triumph in her gaze, only resolve, the kind that came from understanding the weight of survival. Karth's final transmission reached Earth minutes later, a simple statement recorded in a trembling voice. We thought humanity was fragile because they smiled. But their kindness was camouflage. They are not conquerors. They are custodians of consequence. And far away, as the Nemesis vanished into folded space, Captain Alara, Holt whispered to the dark, war isn't over. It just knows our name now. The stars blinked out, leaving silence, and the faint, relentless hum of humanity, watching everything, awake at last.